Hello, good morning. So happy to be here today, and I thank you for joining us. I want to bring on a very special guest, Alexander Theodorou. He's going to be sharing some really interesting information with us today about the virtual space. So let's bring on, here we go. Good morning.
Good morning, Mei-Ling. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I have to tell you, Alexander is a wonderful name because it's the name for my second son.
Fantastic.
Yes, Nicks and Alex's, they hold up really high in my book. So,
That's great.
where are you calling in from?
I am here in snowy Toronto, Ontario, Canada right now.
Ooh, Burr.
Yeah. So just got some snowfall today, but but it's good, you know. I mean, it's about time. We've been good up till now, but you know, yeah. How's everything on your side of the world?
It is wonderful. I'm actually very blessed to be in Santa Barbara, where Cognition's headquarters are, and I believe we're going up to 72 today.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. Well, I want to thank you for joining us. And we were referred to you by our biosignal engineer extraordinaire in Canada, our team member, Sarah Pierce. I know you guys have a little bit of a history together. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so I knew Sarah. We had met just through like mutual friends at an event, and essentially I kind of knew that she was working in the BCI space, and we had just met up and grabbed a coffee and talked a little bit about it. I dabbled in the work of eye tracking and co-registering. EEG signals with regard to emotion processing, and that was for my master's work. So I do love this space. Our current company doesn't necessarily work exactly in that right now, but it's still very much something that I have deep appreciation for. And so we were talking about it, and we had just connected, and so we learned a lot about what cognition was doing, and yeah, and so we kind of since started connecting from there.
So fantastic. Well, I'm so glad that you said yes to join us because I'm really excited to share what you've been doing. So this is a great way to start here. Can you give us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in the role of like neuroscience and linguistics, and particularly within rehabilitation. So did my master's work over in McMaster University, looking at mechanisms of recovery following acquired brain injury. So how the brain kind of bounces back from these injuries. How can we use cool things like technology to help us really better understand what's happening in the lives of these people. And so much like kind of the work at Cognition, really providing that technological interface that allows people to tap into kind of their own skill sets and communicate with the
Yeah.
world around them. And so that's really where it all started for myself. And for me, it came from a personal place. So my dad had a stroke. And so
Oh,
so this was over in 2007. And really for me, it was, while it was devastating, it gave me a lot of a deeper appreciation of, what it means to be that person, what it means to go through the life of living with the stroke or just, disability. And
sure.
so seeing it as a researcher and a caregiver, I started to, better understand, what, how can we, help this community better? How can we help, inform the practices that are being done in the rehab experience? And so I kind of kicked off what is now Neurofit. And so yeah, that's kind of my background, and yeah.
That's huge. That's wonderful. I actually am putting my second book together, and it's called Becoming an Exceptional AAC Leader. And so many of us in this space have our own experiences, with some type of injury or with a
Mm,
family member who may have had a disability at birth. But
yeah.
our experiences really help to inform us on how to use our talents like yours, to create an offering and something that, can really benefit the world as a whole. It's just amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that, Alexander. This is a perfect fit for what we're doing at Cognition. And I know that you and Sarah probably noticed that right away. Okay, so let's get to what do you think is new in this space? And so I was clarifying for myself that you're in virtual reality. I'm sorry.
Mm.
Can you expand on that a little bit for our audience? What's the difference from virtual and augmented?
Yeah, so really virtual reality is creating a sense of presence using like a headset that you can wear and immerse yourself in new worlds. And so this is, it's one type of immersive experience. And another type of immersive experience would be augmented reality, is when you're using technology to overlay on the world around you really new and immersive experiences, whether it be different types of things to interact with, see, explore. And so while they both have a sense of immersion and a sense of presence, there are pros and cons in either, but ultimately they both serve as what we call immersive reality.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, so tell us how this all connects with what you're doing at Neurofit.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Neurofit, the big thing for us was really trying to create real world scenarios in safe environments that would enable care providers and recipients of care, so patients or whoever they may be, really new and unique ways to explore these experiences and apply the skills that they've been able to learn under the supervision of these professionals. So the analogy I can give is, imagine you are, they're professionals are teaching you like ways to strengthen or increase your range of motion, whether it be PT or functional skills and how to navigate and experience the world around you in a safe way, and getting you back to some level of like stability in your life.
Mm.
And so what we found was that a lot of these experiences really fall flat, and that they don't really always model or translate onto the real world scenarios. And so I really wanted to take it one step further and look at not just doing this and providing these experiences, but providing scenarios that can be calibrated and changed and modified according to the person's needs, but also done in a way that reflects a more holistic approach to what they would want to get out of this care experience. So looking at things like how they're feeling, how frustrated they are,
Yeah.
how motivated they are, how much effort did they feel that required, how accomplished were they. And so all these things, which I say here, we often take for granted, but in the context of and rehabilitation, they can be so impactful, and they could really change kind of the trajectory of how a person is improving over the course of the time spent with a professional. And
Fascinating.
so that's where we felt virtual reality fits into the equation. And the hardware is still relatively in its infancy, but as I'm sure you're well aware, being in this tech space, that there is a lot of proponents in this field, and that I think we're just getting started.
Wow. Okay. So I've worked in rehabilitation, and I've watched, because I'm a speech language pathologist, I've watched PT and OT, going
Mm,
through these activities, and like you're saying, writing, manipulating small objects,
mm.
going up and down stairs. Can you walk me through what would your technology look like, and how would that fit into those types of rehabilitation scenarios?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like to give you one, we have experiences where you're navigating unfamiliar paths in nature. And so we want people to rely on different cues, shapes, colors, different things in the world around them, and seeing what they're attending to, what they're not attending to, and there are any sort of risks associated in these decisions that they're making. And so we've taken these kind of experiences and translated them into a much more gamified and
Mm.
immersive way, so that it doesn't, on the surface, it might feel like a game or something more enjoyable, but
Mm.
underneath the hood, it's all rooted in these kind of best practices and, metrics that are important for a professional to better evaluate how they're doing as they see them in real time. And so it's not just, relying on the more traditional measures, which have been around for quite some time. But as I'm sure being a professional as an SLP, and working in the space with OTs and PTs, I'm sure the challenges that run alongside using these more traditional measures.
Absolutely. So is this something that you put on like Oculus?
Yeah, so right now we're working with the Oculus, and so with respect to COVID, we wanted to remove as much of the ability to contact like surfaces, for hygiene reasons. So we just rely on hand tracking alone. So you literally just use your hands and extend them in front of you, and we are able to interact and create the same great experiences, but without the need of having to have people learn how to use a controller, which, while it is ergonomic, might not be as intuitive for people, especially with issues surrounding their grip and spasticity and things like that.
Sure. So I'm thinking about the Oculus controller. There's two ways. So one is you're holding it in your hand, and you still are using like your thumbs and your fingers, your index fingers. And then now there are some apps that you can put it down, and you can use all 5 digits. So have you extended to that version?
Yeah. So we start with the full hand tracking, full range of motion. And so it all starts with calibration, because we know that each person's experience is going to be unique. So, you just simply raise your hands, put them out to the side, put them in front, and then we're gathering all these metrics in that 3-dimensional space, and we're able to calibrate that experience so that it adjusts according to your your abilities within that time that you're using Neurofit. And so, but with the controllers, like for accessibility purposes, we do have those available, obviously, because we don't want to rely solely on hand tracking, because as it is new technology, if the lighting is a little off, or you're not, if it's outside of some range field of view, you get a little bit of jitter. But ultimately, there is really no comparison with controllers as there is with your hands, because it's so much more natural, right? It's something that we've used our whole lives. So I think by giving people the tools, all the tools they need, just by like lifting up their hands and touching and working with things, it just creates a much more enjoyable experience. So
fantastic.
But it does work with both.
Andreas Forslund, who's CEO of Cognition, has a great question here, and it kind of pairs with one of my questions. So he says, Is your solution a therapy? And as a speech language pathologist, I'm already thinking that the solution's not the therapy, it's part of the toolbox that therapists use. So my question compounds this one is, and do you need a therapist to be working with it in order to use it in terms of like, billing?
Yeah, so right now it is a therapeutic exercise. So it is it is rehabilitation, is therapy. We are working with different providers to understand better about like how this fits into their practice. It is fairly new, so a lot of people are open and embrace this novelty and see the vision that we have. And much like the things you guys are working on, right? Figuring out how this helps, who it helps, understanding where this kind of fits in, the type of person it could best support. And so this is kind of the stuff that we're looking at right now. Thankfully, we do have a lot of people that are very receptive to this. So our wait list is kind of piling up right now, which is great. But yeah, it is very much a therapy. We are working with professors over at the University of Toronto to help us inform these practices and kind of really finding that bridge between speaking to the familiarity of these professionals, because this is something that's deeply rooted in the formal training they've had, but also letting them know kind of how much better it can be using these types of modalities and what it means for the overall quality of care that we're able to provide. So yes, to that first question. And your question was, I'm sorry, say that again.
And do you need to have a therapist paired with it to provide this therapy?
Sorry, just gotta drink water.
It's okay. That happened to me yesterday. I was on a call and I literally aspirated the water.
Wow.
Yeah, started wheezing and everything. So and this happens, right?
Boy, not the best when you're going live. But for us, right now, we do have this conducted under the supervision of a care professional. But we have worked directly with, like direct to, brain injury survivors, stroke survivors. We have worked with them directly just to see whether or not this is usable. We always like to keep a very close pulse of, understanding the needs, understanding kind of how to improve the interface, their, willingness to kind of continue using this. What is that sticking factor that we can do so that they can build this adherence to what we're doing, and continue to do it, right? And build it part of that routine, because that is a huge thing in what we're doing. But right now it is like, because we are fairly young, like we launched this, only a few months ago. Company started September 2019, so we're a little over a year old. So it is fairly, accelerated on our side, but at the same time, we're really staying close to the pulse of kind of what this community needs. How can we help these people in the most effective way, and leveraging Neurofit. But the end goal is that we want it to be something that is a blend of both being on site and also being provided as like an extension of that organization. Can be done as like a homework or a real world application, and they can be done on their own time.
Yeah,
and so
that is all
this
of
is
our
kind
goals.
of,
Yeah, in therapy, that you
so
want them to continue it. You don't want abandonment, and also compounding their progress. This must be amazing for data, in terms of showing real progress for like range of motion and all of that.
yeah, and we want to build independence more than anything,
Hmm.
right? I think cultivating that that sense of independence, that sense of kind of feeling like you're a champion of kind of in this in kind of the what you're doing and how you're progressing, and really just being able to recognize, not only you know like the analogy I give is like, when you go to the gym, you've had a good workout, when you're sweating, you're feeling fatigued, you feel kind of like pumped. But, when you're exercising in rehab or doing these more cognitive based exercises, there's really no measure of success that we can
Yeah.
benchmark against, at least one that is as informative to the patient as it is to the professional, right? And so this is kind of the gap we're trying to bridge.
Excellent, excellent. Well, this brings me to my last question, which is, what do you see that is next in this space? I mean, this all sounds so exciting, but what do you think is the next step?
I mean, honestly, there's so much great stuff happening right now. I think, really there's a lot of things that are happening in the role of immersion in terms of like, haptics and suits, and kind of just really, with like, I don't know if you've seen, but there's companies out there that have like things that simulate like grip or force on like objects as you're grabbing them.
Yeah,
Um, you
wow.
know, haptics, so
Mhm.
feeling and sensing things that are virtual, but also have that kind of response factor to them.
Mhm.
But I think the big thing that I'm personally interested in is really integrating and co-registering biometrics with the EEG, so or
Mhm.
with the VR, I should say.
Mhm.
So we dabbled a little bit in galvanic skin response, looking at
Mhm.
like excitation of like the skin and like the body, I should say, and that's measured over the electrical signals across the skin. We did a little bit in EEG, but right now I think the big thing that we're looking into is eye tracking, and we're
Mhm.
collaborating with some places right now. It's a little bit early times, so I'll be happy to keep you all updated as things unfold. But the
Yes.
big thing we're trying to do is model VR experiences that emulate the human eye. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is by being able to centralize crucial information and being able to minimize the periphery. And
Mm.
how do we do that so that processing times are increased, so that we can hone in on areas of engagement, really understanding, just like the human eye, right? There's the
Mhm.
fovea, the core center of information. And then, as you move to the periphery, information gets less and less, and, subsequently less detailed. And so, there's a lot of really, like it's a really robust thing. And so, one of our, awesome engineers on our team has been tinkering with this. And so we're working with a couple of places right now to, test this in different applications.
Excellent. I love that. I'm going to show our headset that we debuted. Let's see. We debuted that on last week on Monday.
Yeah, congrats
And
again. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. And this is definitely in that space of working with the visual cortex and actually interfacing with the computer. So that's where the brain-computer interface comes in,
Mm,
and paying attention to what you are visually paying attention to. And so I just wanted to connect that. And this is where, all these different tech companies are looking into,
mm,
how can we tap into this magnificent brain? I mean, what you're talking about is when you're looking at something, yes, I am, focused visually on something, but that
mm,
peripheral, like, I am seeing other things and I am putting that to memory and I'm interpreting it. I mean,
mm,
there's just so much going on. And it is difficult for one system, to be able to capture all of this and supplant and put us into what is a virtual space, right?
yeah.
Absolutely interesting. So our headset, we are calling the Cognition One for now, but we are using the EEG, that's the brain signals from the
Mm,
visual cortex, to help you to be able to select the words that you want to say. So that's the augmented communication space. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to include that in our talk today. Thank you so much, Alexander, for joining us. We're so excited to hear what you're doing, especially as therapists and parents. We definitely want to continue to find ways to integrate technology into that. And gamification is always great. I love to get that little unicorn that goes across the screen in, I think it's Asana, when you check off
yeah.
things, like you just want that positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was the haptic responses is with the Oculus, you touch things and you feel like you're literally touching a button and pressing it down, but you aren't, it's not there. And so I just wanted to, expand on that a little bit, that I love that you're in that space too, because there's all these other senses that you also want to be taking in.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's a lot of great stuff out there. I think the big thing we always ask ourselves is so what? Like, so what is this going to do for the person we're trying to help? So what is this going to do for their, the big picture goals in terms of how they're going to benefit from this? A lot of this stuff is great for immersion. The haptic stuff, I should clarify, we haven't done just yet. I just know from surrounding companies, startups, and just being in this ecosystem that is a thing. The big thing that we're creating right now, just to kind of clarify that, is we've got the VR, which is kind of like the more in-person, experience. But as you know, with COVID, these challenges and touching things and sharing things, contract tracing and all that stuff has been a big headache. Case in point, we're in lockdown right now. So we wanted to really adapt, and so what we've done is we had kind of brought these great experiences into a web-based platform. So we wanted to so the way you can kind of think of it is like a blend between video calling that's interactive, collaborative, and you can apply these skills into scenarios. And then there's a lot of great data and insights that can help inform that progress. So simpler, easy to use, accessible, and I think that really resonates with a lot of things that you're all working on at Cognition, right? Whether it be the app or the Cognition One, which is absolutely mind blowing. I've been following it for some time, and I kind of had a bit of the pleasure of hearing a sneak peek of it earlier, talking with Sarah. Obviously, no details mentioned, but just knowing that there was kind of like something on the horizon that was going to be this like revolutionary way of interfacing with people. But yeah, no, I mean, like just to like, I don't know if it's proper to ask this now, but like with regard to the Cognition One, though. Can we talk about it right now? Is that like a thing we could talk a little bit about?
As long as it's nothing that is under NDA. So you can ask me anything that we've shared publicly.
Fair enough. No, I was just going to say, like, in terms of the when will this likely be available for people to use?
That's a great question. We are moving to the P1 stage. We just did human factors assessments with the Alpha headset, which was absolutely amazing. It was all 3D printed. It was just incredible. And P1, we're shooting to end of January, February area. And then we'll be doing more assessments locally as much as we can, as you know, with COVID being restricted, being able to actually get this on people and doing that. And then we're looking into working with research universities and hopefully commercially available by early the following year, so 2022, which I can't even believe I'm saying that number, but yeah, and it's moving along really well. And as you know, the testing phases, it's just you can't control all of these things, the hardware, the software, all of these amazing pieces in the background, but we're doing really well. Our team's amazing. We have the team in Toronto and we have a team in Santa Barbara, and we're small, but we're mighty. So thank you for asking that, because I love to be able to to really shout out about everybody. It's just an amazing team, and you know what startups are like. It's all hands on deck.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my team, and I'm sure that's something that you all can, attest to as well, right? And so I think having a good, solid team that I think, is resilient, responsive, and adaptive to these kind of difficult times, especially now when we're all kind of scattered, like we were all central in Toronto, and all of a sudden it's like here, there, family, there, and
Yes.
and I love it at the same time, but it is tough. It is challenging, but I think I think it's a testament, kind of the resilience of the company and kind of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so I think you guys are really on to something with the Cognition One. I'm super excited to see it. Hopefully, try it maybe in the near future.
Yes.
But I think that there's a lot of beauty in that, and I can't wait to see kind of the experiences that it creates for people, the meaningful experiences, just to kind of really empower people and give a voice to those who might not have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We are also very honored to have you joining our Brainiac Council of Advisors, and we will be watching Neurofit to see all of the wonderful things that you and your team are up to.
Sounds good.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that was amazing. Another just wonderful interview. And that is my last interview for 2020. I wanted to thank you for joining us. It has been an amazing year on the BCI What's New, What's Next, and also on the AAC What's New, What's Next Facebook Lives. These shows have been brought to you by our Speak Pros app. And please watch your emails if you are part of our subscription list, and watch our Facebook page, because we do have a new amazing version coming out called Speak Pros 3. I will be sharing that as soon as I can, and hopefully on a Facebook Live with you. So thank you so much, and have a good rest of your day.